much of its early history, Zionism was not a unifying ideology among Jews. In fact, it was profoundly unpopular across the Jewish world, opposed not only by secular intellectuals and working-class Jews, but also by leading rabbis, entire religious movements, and political parties. From the 1870s through the 1930s, the first 6 decades of its existence, Zionism was a minority movement. It wouldn't be until the 1940s, after the horrors of the Holocaust and dramatic shifts in Jewish identity and global politics, that Zionism would become the mainstream current of Jewish life. But before we trace that arc, we must ask, Zionism is a political ideology that emerged in late 19th century Europe. At its core, it asserts that Jews are not only a religious community, but a nation, and as such are entitled to a sovereign homeland, specifically in Palestine, the historical land of Israel. It was born in the shadow of growing anti-Semitism in Europe and as a response to the failures of Jewish assimilation. Its founder, Theodor Herzl, believed Jews could never be safe in Europe and would only find dignity and security through statehood. But for the vast majority of Jews in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Zionism was either irrelevant, impractical, or deeply troubling. In the United States, where Jews had begun to flourish and integrate, Zionism was widely rejected. By the 1930s, the US Jewish population numbered about 4 to 5 million. Yet, Zionist organizations claimed only about 65,000 members, 1.5% of American Jews. The reason? Most feared that agitating for a Jewish state abroad would raise accusations of dual loyalty. Many believed firmly that Judaism was a religion, not a nationality, and that American Jews were Americans. Full stop. This belief was formally declared in 1885 in the Pittsburgh platform of the Reform movement, which called Zionism incompatible with the spiritual mission of Judaism. In 1898, Reform rabbis reiterated their rejection of the idea of a Jewish state. In their eyes, Judaism's task was ethical and universal, not political or territorial. Even after World War I, when Jewish migration to Palestine increased slightly, opposition among American Jewish elites persisted. In 1929, 299 prominent American Jews, including jurists, businessmen, and intellectuals, signed an open letter rejecting the Zionist program as undemocratic. They argued that re-establishing a Jewish state in a land populated 90% by Arabs would amount to political segregation and, in their words, violate the very principles of democracy. This wasn't just an American phenomenon. Across Western Europe, particularly in Germany, France, and Britain, Jews were similarly focused on integration. They had fought for civil rights, citizenship, and acceptance, and many viewed Zionism as a dangerous ideology that could undermine their place in European society. Paradoxically, Zionists and anti-Semites shared one central claim: that Jews did not belong in Europe. That convergence alarmed assimilationist Jews who felt Zionism threatened the fragile acceptance they had achieved. In Eastern Europe, opposition to Zionism took a different shape. There, the most powerful Jewish political organization was the Bund, a secular socialist party founded in 1897 in the Russian Empire. The Bund rejected Zionism not because it opposed Jewish identity, but because it opposed Jewish nationalism. It viewed Zionism as a bourgeois distraction from class struggle and a betrayal of the fight for equality in the lands where Jews actually lived. Meanwhile, in the Middle East and North Africa, the roughly 900,000 Mizrahi Jews living in countries like Iraq, Morocco, Yemen, Egypt, and Iran, were likewise uninterested in or actively hostile to Zionism. They lived for centuries in Muslim-majority societies, often in peace, and feared that the creation of a Jewish state in another Arab land would destabilize the region and provoke anti-Jewish backlash. Many Mizrahi leaders warned that the Zionist project, far from protecting Jews, would endanger them across the Arab world. By the 1930s, the Zionist movement had failed to capture the support of most Jews. It remained a fringe ideology with limited institutional power and little mass appeal. But everything changed in the 1940s. The Holocaust, in which 6 million Jews were murdered by Nazi Germany, completely shattered the landscape of Jewish life. The destruction of European Jewry, the displacement of survivors, and the failure of Western countries to accept Jewish refugees gave Zionism moral urgency and geopolitical weight. Suddenly, the idea of a Jewish homeland was no longer abstract. It was seen by many as a historical necessity. At the same time, Zionist leaders seized the moment. They lobbied world powers, most importantly, the United States, and won international recognition. In 1947, the United Nations voted to partition Palestine, and in 1948, the State of Israel was declared. The dream of Herzl had become reality, but not without profound consequences. The creation of Israel displaced over 700,000 Palestinians and set off a conflict that continues to this day. Many Jews who had once been anti-Zionist now felt a need to defend the new state, especially as it became home to hundreds of thousands of Holocaust survivors and Jews expelled from Arab lands. Zionism was no longer just a theory. It was a nation with an army, a flag, and a seat at the UN. Over the next 6 decades, Zionism transformed Jewish institutions worldwide, especially in the US, where Jewish identity increasingly became tied to support for Israel. Jewish philanthropy, education, and religious life were reshaped around the new reality. For many, Judaism became Israelism, with solidarity toward the Jewish state becoming a test of communal belonging. But over the past 2 decades, and especially the last 2 years, that consensus has begun to fracture. While Zionism remains entrenched in Israel, among American Jews, who make up 70% of world Jewry outside Israel, support for Zionism is collapsing faster than ever before. New generations of Jews, especially younger, progressive and secular Jews, are increasingly critical of Israel's policies toward Palestinians. Some are reviving the anti-Zionist traditions of their ancestors, rediscovering the Bund, Reform Judaism's early platforms, and the writings of Jewish critics of nationalism. Jewish voices once again diverge. Some see Israel as essential to Jewish survival, others see its policies as incompatible with Jewish values. This is the story of Zionism, born in controversy, forged in tragedy, and now once again contested within the Jewish world itself. Its rise and fall, and potential transformation, is not just the story of a movement, but of a people constantly wrestling with the meaning of home, identity, justice, and belonging.